No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
The thing about making your hometown fans watch a god-awful hockey game...
The first of 8.
First of an 8-game homestand. I don't know that all 8 are going to be god-awful, Dave, so let's not get ahead of ourselves on that front. But at the very least, if you're going to make them watch a god-awful hockey game, you might as well stage a late-game comeback to tie it and then win it in overtime so they feel pretty good going home and forget about the first, let's say, 58 and a half minutes of tonight's contest. And instead, they feel with those good vibes and the Jets win. And so everybody thinks, no, that was a great night out at the old barn. So at least the Jets did that for their hometown crowd. And you can sort of, we'll touch on it, but they can sort of put the first 58 minutes in the rearview mirror. It was not a Picasso in downtown Winnipeg tonight. Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show with Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here to discuss the Jets and the Blackhawks, a 3-2 overtime victory. Rare that those have been this year for the Winnipeg Jets. It is an overtime victory tonight over the Chicago Blackhawks in what was just a not a good hockey game. You know, like I said, the Jets fans, you know, the 13,929 that were in attendance tonight will go home happy and they'll go home pleased with the end result. But boy, oh boy, was that just like it was a chore and a slog to get through that game. I really appreciated the Blackhawks strategy of let's ice the puck every single chance we get in the third period while trying to maintain this lead. I don't see how you can go wrong with that kind of strategy. Gentlemen, good to see you both on this Tuesday night.
What's up, boys? What's up, chat? Yeah, the first couple periods were I'm sitting here watching the game and I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I watching? It was so discombobulated. The second period, the first period wasn't anything to write home about. The second period, I was watching it thinking to myself, people paid to watch this game tonight. Yeah. And it was just awful. Luckily, the Jets turned it on and dominated the Hawks in the third period, had a number of glorious chances. And then obviously at the end, we got I want to say a little mini Manitoba miracle. Cole Perfetti tying the game up. No, not at all. And then obviously in overtime.
It happened in Manitoba. That's about as close as you're going to get there.
Yeah, this was not a good game. And, you know, look, the Jets, they end up getting a couple points, which is nice, but they've got a long way to go here. Unless they win 6 or 7 of these 8 games, they're not going to put a dent in the deficit that currently, you know, sits between them and the second wild card spot, right, boys? So yeah, it wasn't a beautiful game, but you know, at the very least, Dave, the Jets got it done in the third period and overtime. But like I said, you know, it was 59 minutes of this game were as depressing as it gets.
I think that's a fair way of putting it. It was not a fun game to be at. I was there, of course, in our spot in the press box for the first 40 minutes, and I just kept thinking to myself, what am I watching? I mean, the shots were 6-4 for Winnipeg after the first period. The Jets had one high danger chance for either through 40. It was just
40.
Yeah, it was not a good hockey game. I'm sorry. Like, we just can't pretend like that was anything. Again, the third period can, like Drew said, give people some temporary amnesia because they'll think, oh, well, you know, the Jets came back and they won and blah, blah, blah. But one thing I will say, Connor Bedard is worth the price of admission. He's really exciting and he's really good to watch. And he, you know, almost made the Jets pay on a number of opportunities where he was able to get, in fact, he had 2 or 3 on one shift. Mm-hmm. So I thought Connor Bedard was excellent for the Hawks. Frank Nazar, he's, you know, a real good young player. We'll talk about him on setting up that first goal for Chicago on the power play. But yeah, it was a tough game. I mean, it just, Cole Koepke got some energy in the building with a big hit.
That was about all there was to cheer for. I mean, in that second period, that's, I'm glad you mentioned the Cole Koepke hit, because I was actually going to be our Wheatland Hockey heads up hockey play of the game, simply because it was the only sort of play in that second period. Let me throw the image up on the screen here. It was the only play in that second period where it looked like the Jets had any life. I mean, Cole Koepke, that's, he hit Sam Rinzen. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly.
Rinzel.
It was Rinzel.
Rinzel.
I'm like, was there another player? Because I thought he had Rinzel. But okay.
Rinzel.
All good.
I got the name wrong. But other than that, that was the only time in that second period that I thought the Jets showed any life. So good on Cole Koepke for having done so. Good on our friends at Wheatland Hockey for supporting us here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Wheatland Hockey is building skills, character, and excellence on and off the ice, a fresh approach to youth hockey and developing a program for absolutely everybody. Check them out online, wheatlandhockey.ca. But if it wasn't for that Cole Koepke hit, like, there was nothing that happened in that middle frame at all. It was, I mean, neither of these two teams are going anywhere. We've acknowledged that. We've accepted that.
What?
That was as bad as you could ever want to see professionals play hockey for a 20-minute period of time there.
Yeah, and it's kind of to be expected a little bit, just because, like you said, both of these teams are, what are they, 27th and 29th in the league, and there's not much to play about. The Hawks have already started selling. I don't know how much more they're going to sell, but Connor Murphy goes to Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just disorganized, right? Like, the Jets were just, they didn't have a lot going offensively until the third period, and obviously, something woke them up, because they were all over the Hawks and had a number of good scoring chances in tight. And I liked.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think the only reason why the Jets looked good in that third period is that Chicago let them. I mean, what was Chicago's approach in that third period after they took the 2-1 lead? I mean, I was being a little
I think they call it a prevent defense, Drew.
All they tried to do was ice the puck, even when they won, even when they had clean possession of the puck. They weren't interested in trying to headman it or move it out of their zone or have a clean zone entry or a clean zone exit. They just fired the puck down the ice. I mean,
his game. I agree with you, Drew. I don't know if anybody was counting the icings. I wouldn't be surprised if they iced the puck 20 times in that third period. I was going to say, I really liked Alex Iafallo's game. He fed Mark Scheifele for a couple of good scoring chances in the third period. He didn't score on them, obviously, because Perfetti scored the only goal in the third period for the Jets. But I liked Iafallo's game. I liked Scott Arniel went to the line blender, right, boys, in the third period, and it worked. And yes, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I was texting someone who was at the game, and I was just saying this is an awful game. But at the end of the day, everybody goes home happy, right? And the Jets get a couple points. So it's kind of one of those things where, you shake your head, and I don't think the Jets have done anything to change our opinion on them being able to win 80% of their games and getting into a playoff spot. But I guess
if the Jets play like this on Thursday against Tampa, they get shit kicked. I mean, pardon my French. Yeah, but I mean, it's not you can play like this against a bad team, and it's going to be a 1-goal game. It's going to be an overtime win, or it's going to be an overtime loss. But once you play a good hockey team, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, newsflash, they're a good hockey team coming to town on Thursday. It's not even going to be a competitive game. That's the reality of the situation, is that you can't play this kind of hockey and expect that that's going to keep you in a contest against a better hockey team than the Chicago Blackhawks, Dave. That's just, you play down to the level of your, I'm not even going to say that the Jets play down to the level of their opponent, because I don't know that they can play much higher than how they played tonight. It just allows them to get a victory against a bad Chicago team by playing the way they did tonight.
Which means the Jets are definitely beating Tampa 5-1 on Thursday. Even though they can't score very much, as Dan mentioned in the third period on the broadcast, that they have not been scoring very many goals, and that's because a lot of their guys are not producing, and that's a big problem for them, right? So it's we can go back to the goalless drought. I know Morgan Barron just broke his after going 20 or 21 games, whatever it was, without a goal. Gus Nyquist remains in that limbo. He was honored for his 900th NHL game. I don't think he'll be hitting 1,000. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But
not as a member of the Winnipeg Jets, that's for sure.
That is true. That is true, Drew. There is always a possibility maybe he can get on with one of the well, I mean, I shouldn't say one of the lesser teams, because right now the Jets have been one of the lesser teams of this season. But yeah, I mean, it is a tough slog, and it's going to be it'll be like, this is going to be an interesting week. I think the folks are starting to come into the Matt Frost
we're going to
media
bring
room.
Scott Arniel in a second here, but keep going with your thought.
No, I just think it's just going to be, I think it's going to be a fascinating week, right? They practice tomorrow. They play the Lightning on Thursday. They have nothing on Friday. All the brain trust, all those guys, we saw them in the press box. They were all there. So, they're having their meetings. They're talking about their plans for the next few days. But that to me is really what we're here to pay attention to, right? Like, which guys have effectively have one more game in a Jets jersey, right? Is Logan Stanley playing his last Jets game on Thursday? Is Luke Schenn? Maybe they don't play him on Thursday. Maybe you don't want to take a risk. Is Luke Schenn playing on Thursday? Will that be his last game? So, I mean, again, that to me is really kind of the more interesting element of these games is the games this week, I should say, is just whether we are seeing guys play their last games in a Jets jersey.
Well, I mean, if these guys do play their last games in the Jets jersey, and that, obviously time will tell on that front. I mean, how many of them, Logan Stanley has been the most impactful of all those guys this year.
You mean 27 minutes Logan Stanley today?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously it's a matter of circumstances, and that, Josh Morrissey's out of the lineup and everything else that's going on the back end. But I'm ready to turn the page on a lot of these guys and see what, again, not that I expect that anybody coming up from the Manitoba Moose is going to be a revelation, but at least for the next, 20 some odd games of this year, it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table. Here's Scott Arniel.
Kind of played more of a straight line, just got pucks in and got on the forecheck. We really we didn't do a very good job in the first two periods getting through the neutral zone, and if we did, we didn't have numbers and we didn't have speed to get in on the forecheck. They got out of their zone real quick, and just thought we did a way better job of it in the third. And we got in, we got heavy, and we won some puck battles, and we got them kind of icing pucks and guys getting caught out for long shifts for them, and it helped us. I like the way each line kept going out and rolling one right after the other, and it kind of kept the wave after them, and it looked like they tired them out a little bit.
You're going from nobody doing that to everybody doing that. Is it one line that went out and set the tone? Do you think it was something that was said on the bench? Like, what instigates it?
There were some things said. There were some things said. Talked to him after the second. It just, I mean, we just everything, our execution, our battle, everything for just our like I said earlier about getting pucks in and trying to establish all that stuff. We just weren't really doing it. It wasn't consistent enough. It wasn't one line right after another doing it, and that was pretty much the message. I mean, they went out and did it, and I thought they did a great job of it. And our defense did a great job of getting up and be a part of that offense, and we slammed some guys in the boards, and created some battles for loose pucks, held on to pucks, and it gave us the zone time.
Was one of those guys who I can think of some hits that turned into turnovers and some cycle time, and he also drew a penalty for you. So what are you seeing from his line and him right now?
Yeah, the big thing about Cole is he puts his speed on display. He's a real tough player to play against for the opposition. That was a big hit he got in there in the second, and when he pushes people back like that, Bear has that speed, as well, and the PK, him taking off like that, that's he does that stuff. It's like I mentioned, he puts the defenders on their heels, and he can be effective. That line has been effective for us, especially since we come back from the break. So he just needs to continue to do that. He's a big part of our PK as well.
On your pursuit for points here, how important was it to start that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. We're talking about 8 games, but we needed to get out of the gate here, and this 2 tonight against a team that was sitting 1 behind us, it was very important. And we went right to the wire and found a way, which was awesome. But at the end of the day, it's important that we got a tough Tampa team coming in here next, and to get that one under our belt is hopefully gives us a little bit of confidence. We sort of saw the way we need to play, and what was successful in that third period, and carry that over into Thursday's game.
You see some of the players take questions about, almost feeling like the season's over. They obviously don't feel that, but they take questions like, needing points, all this stuff. And you hear Mark talk about, we just have one goal here, and that's to focus and to win. How would you see the belief in that room?
Yeah, I think that we do have a veteran group, so there's a lot of guys that have maybe been in that situation before, or been around that. I think they've seen it, throughout the league and other years. Like I said this morning, you have to take care of your own business, and you just try to let everything fall into place, and hopefully it falls in the right place. We have to gain points. We have to win hockey games and hope that things happen to other teams. Tonight Nashville lost. I can't believe here I am sitting with whatever 20-something games left, and I'm watching every single score and see what's going on. So, and our guys are recognizing that as well, but they know that we have to take care of our business. And I think our veteran group is the ones that are focusing just on what's happening next, and that's our next game.
Scott, how nice was it to see Dylan Sandberg get his first of the year and make the play on the OT winner as well?
Yeah, for Henry, his son, that was born during the break there. So great for Sammy. I think that anytime you can get the offense from your back end, that's huge. And that was obviously early in the game. And I think Sammy's, he's been squeezing it. He's had some really good looks. He's had some good opportunities over the year. And like I said, when our back end can put help with the offense, it goes a long way.
You touched on this with Jeff's question, but a team like yours, where you were in the standings coming into this game, there's a lot of teams that would look at the way that game's going and think it's not our night, it's not our year, all those kind of things. What makes your team the kind of team that in that moment, rather than fold the tent, that they pushed the way that they did to come back in that game?
Yeah, we haven't had a whole lot of those moments this year. Last year we had a lot of them where we stayed in games all the way through, so I guess the guys that were here last year can carry that over. We've also had games where we've been up and it's gone the wrong way, but I just, going back to Murat's original question, it became one line, the next line, third line out, fourth line out. It became repetition, and all of a sudden you heard this sort of rumble on our bench. You could hear the sort of guys commenting about, all right, that's it, keep doing it, keep pouring at them like that, and keep chipping it by them and keep finishing. And so the communication was starting to build on the bench, and then it swung. In the second period, they were all over us, and the ice was tilted in the second. We tilted it back, and it was way an advantage for us in the third.
You touched on it. You touched on last year. Last year, you were a team that was able to, get those late last-second comebacks quite often and find your way back into games. Didn't really have it for the first half of the year, but all of a sudden, the last 10, 15 games, you guys seem to have rediscovered that ability. What's changed?
We've had so many different rosters and lineups along the way here. It's kind of been, that's the one thing we didn't have so much of an issue with last year. It just seems like, we're kind of starting to figure out our lines a little bit more. Guys are kind of up and running and getting there. We had a lot of guys that were struggling to get going offensively or playing to their potential. And everybody in the last 10, 12 games seems to be playing at the level that we need them to play at, and I think that's helped with our consistency.
You like that play Davis Payne drew up?
Oh yeah. But you know what? The big thing for me was JT. Obviously, huge face-off. That it starts there, and they had some pretty good guys over there, and we'd won a couple, but they were kind of getting the edge on us, and that was a big draw by JT to get started. And yeah, obviously, Fet's great goal.
Teams come in with different styles of play and play to their strengths, like Chicago with their speed and things like that. You guys have your own identity and style, but how important is it to adapt to the teams you're playing, and how do you manage that while sticking to your identity?
Yeah, it seems that's one thing about the league. There's an awful lot of speed in the league now. That's just what it is. I think that our identity is what you saw in the third period. It's gain zones. get through the neutral zone, then get in and get heavy. And when we get heavy like that, we can run up against any team in the league. And I look back to the Dallas game here, the Washington game here. Some of these big teams, that Florida, that down in Florida, like the big heavy teams, we don't have a problem playing those games. But you're right. When the quick teams, it's all about getting over top of people. It's not allowing them to have ice and room to work. And you try to slow them down before they ever get going, and that's finishing checks. That's running through people, so that it's they're not a part of the second wave of the rush. D can't jump in the rush if they get knocked into the boards, and just felt we did a better job of that in the third. Thanks.
There he goes, Winnipeg Jets head coach Scott Arniel tonight from the Matt Frost Media Center. Pleased with the team's comeback and end result in tonight's contest. 3-2, the Winnipeg Jets successfully defeat the Chicago Blackhawks. Wasn't pretty, but it's pretty on the scoreboard for the Jets as they leapfrog the Blackhawks now and move within 6 points of the Edmonton Oilers, as it happens, for the final Western Conference playoff spot. The Oilers' struggles have forced them down all the way into the second wildcard spot, and they are currently losing at home to the Ottawa Senators with about 9 minutes to go in Edmonton. So there's just a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard. You heard Scott Arniel say that he's been looking at the scoreboard, Dave Minuk, so we might as well take a quick
Are the Jets
glance
6
at it
points
as well.
back or 8 points back?
8 points back,
Okay.
Depending on the result of tonight's Oilers game. If the Oilers stage a comeback there, then the Jets could be 10 points back. But if the Oilers end up losing, then they would be 8 back they'll have 2 games in hand, in fact. So saying there's a chance, not a chance.
Well, part of me, there's a very, very slim chance. Part of me, watching that game, the question was asked by Sean Reynolds, just talking about, mustering up the energy and the fortitude to come back in that third period, right? After having played just awful. We already talked about that in the first couple periods.
Mm-hmm.
So part of me is thinking, maybe they can go on a little bit of a run here at home, but then I look at some of the teams that they're going to have to play on this homestand, and I'm not as optimistic, right? So, look,
with the exception, but with the exception of the game against Colorado and the game against
Tampa
and the game against Tampa, the other games on this homestand aren't particularly challenging.
Although Tampa's lost 2 in a row.
Sure, fine, that's fair.
So they're ripe for the pickings. Jets 5-1 win, as he
Tampa Bay is one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah,
I'm aware they've still lost 2 games in a row. I'm just saying.
But aside from Tampa Bay and Colorado, you have Vancouver. Well, we've seen Vancouver. We know how terrible they are. The Ducks, who the Jets really should have beat earlier last week if it wasn't for that collapse. Now, I think Anaheim's a better team than the Jets are. They have the Rangers. Well, the Rangers have been in sell mode for a while. You have the Blues. Well, I think the Blues are apparently trading everything that isn't, strapped down.
Yeah.
And you got the Predators, a team that you would expect, who they made 2 trades already today. So they've put the for sale sign up. So,
and they're ahead, by the way, and they're ahead of the Jets.
And they're ahead of the Jets. I know that.
But
But
4 points.
They traded Michael McCarron
and Cole Smith.
Although,
I
you know what? I
would
got to
say
tell
that-
you. Sorry, go ahead, Az.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
What have
so
you got?
I was going to say that I don't know if the for sale sign is up. I still think they're going for the playoffs. That's all I wanted to say.
That's fine. But my point is that, of the 8 games on this homestand, only 2 of them are against teams that are so heads and shoulders above you, and better than you in the standings. Now, I don't expect the Jets to go 6-2 on this homestand because that would be an unusual record given how the Jets have performed for most of the season, but it's not an unbelievably challenging one. It gets harder after this homestand. That's when you actually have to go out and you play some good teams. We have a back-to-back against the Avalanche later in this month. You got a game against the Golden Knights. The schedule gets harder as the month of March moves on. Who knows what the situation will be at that point in time? But in any event, look, the Jets need to perform better if you have any hope of trying to really become competitive and move, and play well against the better teams. This kind of performance against a good hockey team will not cut it on Thursday night.
No, absolutely. And I would personally rather watch the Jets play well and win some of these games than them just keel over and lose all of these games at home and there's no hope, right? And I think most Jets fans, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that are part of Tank Nation right now, but again, I would rather, it's certainly going to make these post-game shows a lot more interesting if the Jets are able to put some wins together on this homestand, right?
No question.
So, look, they got the 2 points. I think, the question was asked about Dylan Sandberg. Great to see him get his first goal of the year. It's obviously been, a bit of a rough year for him with the injury and everything like that. So great to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was an exciting end to the game with Perfetti scoring late and then Scheifele scoring the winner in overtime. So, even though there's a 5% chance of the Jets making the playoffs, I think, for Jets fans, even if there's a small glimmer of hope, then that's better than none.
No question about it. Make a run, at least be interesting. Keep these post-game shows as being interesting, because if it's 20 games of absolute, of absolute dreariness, it's going to be a long slog for everybody. Let's get into the goal-by-goal recap here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. We do it each and every post-game show. It's brought to you by our friends at Play Now.
The Play Now game recap.
Big thanks to our friends at Play Now for their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. When you sign up for Play Now, you get to choose your welcome bonus up to $250. Don't bet on illegal sites. Bet with Play Now instead. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Big thanks, as I mentioned, to our friends at Play Now. The Jets opened the scoring. That's been a bit of a pattern as of late. They opened the scoring just under 4 minutes into the first period. In fact, 3 minutes and 59 seconds to be exact. It's a little 4-on-4 hockey. Morgan Barron is in the box for high sticking, and then 13 seconds later, Sam Rinzel is in the box for holding. So it's 4-on-4, and it results in Dylan Sandberg, as we mentioned, getting his first of the season. Assist to Mark Scheifele, assist to Kyle Connor. I mean, the Jets do a good job in using the space that's available to them on the ice, and Sandberg gets in behind the Blackhawks defenders. Alex Vlasic sort of loses track of Dylan Sandberg. I'm pretty sure he was surprised that Sandberg was as low in the Blackhawks zone as he was. Nice pass from Scheifele to Sandberg. Probably a one that Spencer Knight would want back. I'm going to say that with some a charitable nature in my tone of voice, that it's not the strongest goal that has ever been scored, but Dylan Sandberg says thank you very much nonetheless, his first of the season. And as I mentioned, the Jets now have a 1-0 lead 4 minutes into the game,
Yeah, and for as far as first goals of the year go, when you've had this big of a drought, this was not a beauty goal. And yeah, it kind of just looked like Spencer Knight overcommitted a little bit. So that's definitely a goal that he'd like to have back. But I think, there was some nice work here by Kyle Connor along the boards to make a little pass in tight to Scheifele, and then Scheifele fires it over to Sandberg. And like you said, it's not necessarily the guy that you expect to jump up into the play, but, good on Sandberg for, identifying some open space onto the ice, and, good for him, right? Like, regardless of what people think or say, that Sandberg, it was biting at him a little bit. Like, even though he's a defenseman and more so known for being a defensive defenseman, I mean, it's always nice to get that one goal on the board, right? So good for him. As Scott Arniel mentioned, he also had the birth of his son, Henry. So it's a pretty good week for Dylan Sandberg, guys.
Yeah, the son was born during the Olympic break, so he got some QT with the newbie while all the players were off doing their Olympic thing. But certainly something that he'll be glad about. First game back on home ice after his son was born. He'll be able to tell him about that as the youngster grows up over the years. Right, Dave?
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to add, not to Ezzy's analysis on the goal, which was is fulsome and didn't need any addition. But I was going to say that Cole Koepke drawing the power play for the Jets, it was a nice play by him to use his speed. I can't remember who made the pass, whether it was Lowry or not, but it was a nice pass up to Koepke, and he used his speed to get in behind the Hawks defense and early on draw that power play, which nullified the Hawks power play, right, guys? So nice play by Koepke. I just thought it's one of those things. Oftentimes guys don't get, heralded or messaged or noticed for, but I just thought, again, critical play that allowed them to eliminate a power play.
It's a good point by you, Dave, because the first couple minutes, right? If you remember, the Hawks were all over the Jets in those first couple minutes. Like the Jets started off like, obviously, when you talk about start, you're not just talking about the first 2 minutes, but if you want to really go into the start of the game, and the Hawks get a power play, but then it's nullified. So it's a good point, and it's like we said, that's why Koepke is a guy. We've talked about this. I think we all agree.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement, I believe, that he's a guy that you look to bring back next year. Like he's a versatile player. Like he always gives you an honest effort. He's got the physicality, and he's got a bit of a scoring touch, right? Like he doesn't.
And he's good on the PK, as he.
Yeah, and he can kill penalties. So, like, to me, when you're talking about a lot of these Jets players on expiring contracts, I think you get rid of most of them. But Koepke's a guy that I think you sign. I don't know if you give him more than a year, maybe 2 years.
If you run Koepke, Barron, and whomever as your fourth line next year, or Zhilkin, I mean, whoever it is, again, I think we all would like to at least see what Morgan Barron can do a little bit higher up in the lineup. It seems unlikely that the Jets think that he can do much more higher up in the lineup because they haven't given him that opportunity over the last number of years. But Koepke, Barron, and whomever should at least be it's got an identity for a fourth line for next year for the Winnipeg Jets perspective and for the remainder of this year. Look, Koepke, Barron, and Tanner Pearson, been pretty decent together. I would argue
won't be seeing them on Saturday.
Well, I mean, the expectation would be that Tanner Pearson could very well get traded at the deadline. But Koepke, Barron, and Pearson have been the Jets really. They've been their third line in terms of effectiveness, more so than the Dewar, Taves, and Nyquist line. I
didn't love Taves' game today. I mean, I did like Dewar's game, and he was credited with 4 or 5 hits.
Yeah, they were better today than they were.
But you're right. You're right. The Barron line was more effective. Well,
I think you mentioned earlier in the post-game show, Izzy, that Alex Iafallo stood out to you today for all the right reasons. It's interesting to note. So when Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde were together, and they were together to start the game, and they played just under 7 minutes at 5-on-5 together. The shot attempts were 6-3 against them. So they were outshot while on the ice in terms of the attempts. Then Scott Arniel went to the blender, and Iafallo, Scheifele, and Connor played together for the majority of that third period. Shot attempts for that trio, 19-6 in their favor in 9 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time. So we know that the bulk of that ice time was in the third period, and we know the Jets were dominant in that third period. But Scheifele, Connor, and Iafallo, 19-6 were the shot attempts in their favor. And when Iafallo was playing with Lowry and Perfetti, before they made the switch, 5-2, the shot attempts were in that favor. So Alex Iafallo was effective on whatever line that he was on in tonight's contest. Gabe Velarde, when he was with Scheifele and Connor, they didn't do much. Gabe Velarde, when he was with Perfetti and Lowry, also didn't do much. Not that I'm saying it's Velarde's fault in particular, but it just goes to show that Alex Iafallo was sort of the straw that stirs the drink for the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's contest.
No, absolutely. And I think there's a good chance that you're going to see Iafallo. I mean, obviously, this is just speculation, for lack of a better word, but I think that there's a good chance you'll see him stay on that top line for Tampa Bay and possibly, for the majority of games on this homestand, just based on the way they played in that third period, right? Obviously, Scott Arniel can always go back and reunite Velarde with Connor and Scheifele, but certainly he was effective. And, I threw his name out there on Saturday show as far as trade interest, not because I think the Jets should trade him, but for this exact reason, because I think other teams see how good he is. And the fact that he can play on your third line, your second line, your first line, whatever, he can play on all 4 lines. So I wasn't advocating for Iafallo to be traded. I just thought, around this time of year, you're always talking about like which guys are going to get trade interest. I don't think he's going anywhere. The guys with the 2 years left with a very manageable cap hit. Obviously he's a very well-liked guy in the room. So yeah, he was really good tonight. And again, sometimes like it kind of reminded me, guys, of the kind of the old Jets, like the kind of 2017, 18, 19 Jets when, they'd get pretty badly outplayed, but then they just turn it up for one period and, rely on Hellebuck was quietly solid in net for the Jets tonight. I realize we'll get into the goals, and the second one was the early third period goal was a little.
It was a pinpoint shot. I mean, that was just a better shot than it was save attempt. I mean, I don't think I have a problem with that goal. It was a great shot. That
it was just more. Yeah, it was a nice shot. It was more so from the distance, right? Like, but
sure, you don't want to get beat in that instance, but that's a perfect shot. I mean,
it was a nice shot.
There was not a lot of a scoring opportunity there. If you ask Connor Hellebuck, what could you have done better on this one? I mean, I think his positioning was decent. Well, I mean, stop the puck is probably the answer, but it's not like he was out of position on that goal, which we'll get to. First, we have the Teravainen goal, which ties the game up on the power play. 1:12 to go in the first period. It's with Gabe Vilardi in the box for a double minor for high sticking.
How did they? I mean, I was obviously at the game, so I didn't hear. But how did they explain it? Because it was very weird. I don't know. Again, what
the linesman made the call.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because neither ref put their hand up, so both refs missed the high stick by Vilardi, but I just didn't know how. Like, again, my presumption was that the linesman made the call. I just, again, there was no announcement. It was kind of a weird play because you saw his head snap and you're like, okay, and then you're like, it looked like a high stick, but I was like, I watched both refs, neither one made a call. Play kind of continued for about 3 seconds, and then all of a sudden, then they blew the whistle.
Right.
And then obviously the lines, they all met, but I just wasn't sure. Again, like I said, my assumption was that's what happened because the
I don't think it was textbook officiating and how it unfolded, but that's exactly what happened. Is that you could see? I mean, I think probably where the plays so it happened in the corner. So the front ref is on the other side of the net, so he doesn't have a clear view of it. The back ref. Also wouldn't have a clear view of it because there's so many bodies in the way. You could see the head snap back, but it absolutely was, after the fact where, there was a pause. There was like his head snapped back. The Jets controlled the puck. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Then the whistle blew. Then everybody on the ice got together, and that's when they made the call at that point in time. So they got the call right. But it certainly wasn't picturesque in how they came to the final conclusion on it. But in any event, with Gabe Vilardi sitting in the box for the double minor on Alex Vlasic, Teuvo Teravainen gets his 13th of the year, assist to Nazar and Connor Bedard. And Dave, you loved the no-look pass from Nazar. I saw you tweeted about it when this goal went in. Yeah,
it was a beautiful. I mean, again, he looks off as if he's not even looking at Teravainen, and that's the beauty of it, right? That's the talent of guys like these. Chicago has a lot of young, talented players. I mean, they're going to be Bedard is fantastic. He's obviously the most talented, but they have a wealth of other young, talented players in the system, and Nazar is no slouch. And so, and a lot of Jets fans, if you remember, and I know Ezzy remembers this, wanted the Jets to draft him. So he makes a beautiful, like I said, no-look pass, gets it over to Teravainen, and Teravainen beats Hellebuck. He looked a little awkward on this play. Like, he just kind of looked like he didn't get a chance to set, and then Teravainen
was deep in his net also on this one. He wasn't really out to challenge. I mean, it was, it was a nice power play setup and a nice power play goal, but I agree. The whole Jets PK on this one, it wasn't pristine, I would say, in how they approached this. That seam pass coming through from Nazar onto the stick of Teravainen, and obviously you never want to give up that seam pass into the slot there, Ezzy.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what stood out to me on this goal. I just thought that, I mean, look, it's a power play. The Hawks obviously have an extra guy on the ice, but I just thought they were a little bit overloaded to one side. And I just thought that Teravainen he had so much time and space. Dave's right. It's a beautiful pass by Nazar. And again, Dave is right when he says this is the future of the Hawks. When you're talking about, Connor Bedard and Nazar and Green and Kevin Kurchinski, who I believe Dave is still in the AHL, right?
Yeah, he is.
So he's part of that future, right?
Yeah.
And so the Hawks are not making the playoffs this year, but you can see like they've got the makings of a good team to come. But yeah, that's what I didn't like about this particular was Barron and Koepke, who were both excellent penalty killers. But I just thought on this particular play, Teravainen they were, again, the word I would use is they were just overloaded to the right of Hellebuck, and Teravainen just comes in, and that's. I mean, that was a beautiful pass, but also an obvious pass, right? When you see Teravainen coming in there with all that open ice, and Hellebuck played that maybe a little bit awkward, but I'm not going to, be stealing Wade Flaherty's job anytime soon with that type of analysis.
1-1 after 20 minutes. The second period comes and goes, and the less said about it, the better. It was an awful period of hockey. Nobody scored in that second period. The shots after 40 minutes of play were 14-13. So it was a low event 40 minutes of hockey, given that the teams, I think I tweeted it out, something like averaged points less than a shot per minute through the first 40 minutes of the game, and it was just not very exciting. The Blackhawks take the lead 32 seconds into the the third period. It's Ryan Green, his 8th of the season, assist to Connor Bedard, assist to Rinzel as well. Just poor communication by both Adam Lowry and Luke Schenn as they both go to Bedard. And he just has a very simple pass to get it over to Ryan Green because nobody is covering Green whatsoever, given that 2 of the Jets players are on Bedard and neither of them doing a great job at preventing him from getting the pass over to Green. And then Green steps in and just absolutely perfectly placed shot, beating Connor Hellebuck 32 seconds in to give the Blackhawks the 2-1 lead.
Yeah, and a lot of people were still, I think, walking to their seats or maybe still buying a beverage or getting some popcorn. This goal happened so quickly to start the third period. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like just a little bit of standing around and just not being organized, I think, in the neutral zone. And, Hellebuck obviously goes to play it, and it goes right to Bedard. And it's a nice shot. I mean, it really is. Like, Hellebuck goes down a little bit. That's kind of maybe what I didn't like about the goal. But again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a goalie expert like Wade Flaherty or Kevin Woodley, who we have on the show often, right? But I can't say that I'm surprised that they let that goal in, just based on the way they played in the second period, right? Chicago was all over them. Bedard had 3 or 4 good scoring chances in that middle frame. But I just think they were a little sleepy to start the third period, and that is what resulted in the goal, just not being crisp in your own zone, and Hellebuck just not playing that rim around, Dave. Yeah, I didn't think he played it well. I just didn't think he goes to stop the puck, and then it kind of just it led to that goal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's again, it's kind of like an unusual start to a period, right? Because your life is somewhat on the line. I mean, I know folks get upset when we're talking about this, but right now, until the Jets are mathematically eliminated, when they win games, we have to talk about them potentially. Although worth noting, the Oilers tied the game with 1:25 to go in the third period. So that one most likely heading to overtime.
It is in overtime already.
Okay, between the Oilers and Ottawa.
Right.
But
so best case scenario, the Jets are 9 back of the Oilers.
Well, I mean, and that's just unfortunately for the Jets, the reality of. I mean, think about it, guys. The Jets are playing their 5th of 6 games that have gone to extra time in the last 5th game of the last 6 that have gone to extra time, 4 straight.
Well,
right?
Remember when earlier in the year we were talking about the Jets couldn't get any loser points and none of their games went to overtime and everything.
I know. Well, they're like let's make sure.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah, let's make sure the West Coast games go to extra time so it can be even longer. Yeah. And we'll keep doing that. So.
Now they're tied for the third most overtime losses in the Western Conference this year. They're tied with a bunch of teams. They're tied with Minnesota and the Jets and the Blackhawks and maybe another team or two. I'd have to double check. But so they've been able to get games into overtime. Now they need wins instead of getting the games into overtime.
Right. And like we've acknowledged that this is, I mean, I don't, if you listen to our show regularly, you shouldn't be surprised by the positions we've taken, which is we don't think the Jets are going to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, but we still have to talk when they win about the ramifications of that win. We can't ignore it. So
if the Jets can go, Dave, 6-2 or 7-1, then there's at least a little bit more hope. But it's possible that 6-2 or 7-1 is not even going to cut it. That's the thing.
look
They could only make up a couple points if they go with that record.
I mean, look, they took 4 out of 6 on this road trip, and which, I mean, again, they should have had more, but they got 4 out of 6 and they gained 1 point, I think. So, I mean, the reality is the reality. The numbers are the numbers, and the percentage is still only about 5 or 6% in terms of them making the playoffs, which is, I think, less than them making getting a chance to draft in the win the lottery. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, but like I said, I'm not trying to segue and do that into a Saturday show. I just think that someone wants Ezzy to stop. Please stop pretending that there's a chance. No,
I'm not pretending. I'm clinging on to a tiny, and I emphasize the word tiny, little bit of hope.
I
don't have a lot of hope. I have about 5% of hope.
Yeah,
that's fine, Ezzy. You're allowed to have hope. No one's going to.
Thank you.
No one's going to deprive you of your delusions.
I mean, look, as Doug is saying, Jets need to win at least 19 games of regulation, and they've got 21 games left or 22 games left. So totally doable. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, like I said, this is just what you have to talk about. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a tough start for that third period though for the Jets, because right now all they're talking about is having a chance in winning the game, and that puts them into a tough position because of the way they came from the second period and into that third.
Yeah, so 2-1 after the green goal, and that's when Chicago made the curious decision to completely stop trying to play hockey and just ice the puck repeatedly. And the Jets, garnered momentum off of that continued strategy, and they just sort of sent wave after wave after wave at the Blackhawks, probably about the 5-minute mark and onwards of the third period.
As an aside, sorry to interrupt you, Drew, but when was, maybe you can jump in on this one too. When was the last time you ever remember a game where a team just threw the puck and it was early in the third? Like, it wasn't like it was like 2 minutes to go. But do you remember a game where they've taken that many icings in the third period?
No. And Dan and Kevin mentioned it on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Like, especially kind of like around the midway mark of the third period on. It was like their strategy was just get the puck out and ice it. And I mean, what's Chicago playing for? Let's be honest, right? Like, I guess
Oilers won, by the way, in overtime.
Of course.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, but that's why, again, just as an aside, it goes back to what we said before. That's why you probably have to run the table on this homestand to even give yourself a little bit more of a chance. Like, again, I know there's some people that are part of Tank Nation and they think it's ridiculous, but again, we're trying to provide a little bit of hope here for Jets fans.
Well, you are.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, yeah, and the reality is you are providing hope that they'll get a top 5 draft pick and a player who's going to make an impact on the roster next season.
Back to your point, though, Dave, it was just the most bizarre approach. It's like they were, I mean, I understand not wanting to make mistakes and being cautious and being defensively responsible and all those things. Those are good things. But Chicago just they weren't even interested in trying to make a play. It was a very odd approach. It's an approach that's doomed to fail more often than not, especially with that much time left in the game. So It's not a surprise that eventually, although it took a while and it took an empty net, the Connor Hellebuyck being on the bench for the Jets to get the tying goal. Cole Perfetti getting that goal at the 19:21 mark, assist to Scheifele and Stanley. But Chicago,
Manitoba Miracle number 2, Drew.
Right. Chicago let that happen to themselves. They can look directly in the mirror at how they played that third period. The Jets I think the Jets would have been fine. I don't think the Jets had a lot of push in their game if Chicago had provided any sort of resistance whatsoever. It's just that Chicago just was rolled over and said, fine. You guys can tie the game if you want.
Yeah, they were hanging on for dear life. That's exactly what they were doing. They were playing for the 1-goal win. They were not, there was aside from what I can remember, Connor Bedard, like a couple flashy, efforts by him. For the most part, yeah, they were happy just to get the hell out of Winnipeg with a 1-goal win. and it came back to bite them. Like our friend Andrew Haleko said, it worked for 19 and a half minutes. But then the Jets drew up a play. Davis Payne said, okay, Taves, you win the faceoff, get it back to Perfetti, score.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what they did, right?
It's a good strategy.
So I mean, look, let's move on off of this game because, like I said before, for the first 59 minutes of this game, there's not enough Prozac in the world that could have helped me by watching this game. So,
well, the Jets win it in the overtime period. Mark Scheifele, his 28th of the season, assist to Dylan Sandberg. Again, even it comes off of a turnover in the Blackhawks' own zone at 3-on-3 overtime, which is, of course, something you absolutely cannot do in 3-on-3 overtime, is turn the puck over. The Jets take advantage of it, and Scheifele wires it past Spencer Knight. It was Ryan Green who turned the puck over for the Blackhawks, and the Jets will run away with a 3-2 victory. Not the prettiest effort, not the prettiest victory, but 2 points in the bank for the Winnipeg Jets as a result of tonight's victory over the Blackhawks. When we come back on the Illegal Curve post-game show, more on tonight, and we'll look ahead to Thursday as well as potentially any trades between now and then. So the point is, don't go anywhere. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show presented by our friends at Play Now. Plenty more still to come on this Tuesday night.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
no. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca. For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Ray D JCC King Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
15 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Jets win tonight 3-2 over the Chicago Blackhawks in overtime. They start their 8-game homestand on the right foot, which is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets wanted to do. They do it by beating the Blackhawks tonight. Not the prettiest game, but effective nonetheless. Couple trades so far in the lead up to Friday's deadline. Chicago, the aforementioned Blackhawks, they acquire a second-round pick in exchange for Connor Murphy. He goes to the Edmonton Oilers. Then earlier today, Michael McCarron goes to the Minnesota Wild from the Nashville Predators in exchange for a second-round pick.
That's a high pick, by the way.
Like a higher than
it's in 2035.
It's a 2028 second round pick.
That was going to be my add-on to Ezzy's comment from earlier. I was surprised that Nashville got a second for McCarron.
I was a little surprised about it as well. His strength is in the face-off circle, apparently the defensive zone face-off circle to be exact, and that's an area that the Minnesota Wild struggle in. But to give up a second-round pick, albeit one, in 2028 for that very specific role, I thought was a pretty significant price to pay for a guy that is we've seen Michael McCarron play a lot of hockey over the years, and with all due respect to him, I don't know that I've ever been excited watching Michael McCarron play hockey, but Bill Guerin knows better.
He's a fourth line guy. That's
my point.
He's a guy that can drop the gloves. He's huge. What is he, 6'4", 6'5", right? But a second round pick, even though it's in 2028, it's still a second round pick, right?
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
So but I mean, if that's a sign of if those two trades are a sign of things to come on Friday, boys, then God help us. God help us all.
You haven't even let me get to the final trade of the night, which is also saw Nashville send Cole Smith to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 2028 third-round pick. Apparently, we're only allowed to trade draft picks in 2028 at this year's deadline. A 2028 third-round pick and defenseman Christopher Sedoff, who I would be lying to you if I said I knew anything about him whatsoever. They go to Nashville. Cole Smith, also a depth guy, a fourth-line guy. He goes to Vegas as well. So there's your 3 trades so far. Nothing that's going to set the world ablaze in any way, shape, or form so far with regard to the trade deadline.
I guess the question becomes, do the Jets, for you two, do you believe that the Jets wait till Friday, boys, to make their moves? Or do you think that there's a chance that they'll fire someone out tomorrow or the day after? Ezra, I'll start with you.
Well, there might be a few teams that want to get ahead of the Gus Nyquist sweepstakes, right, boys? So, I mean, I think most likely the trades are going to happen on Friday, and we talked about it on Saturday's show. Like, again, I'll go on the record, and if I'm wrong, it will definitely not be the first and won't be the last time I'm wrong. But I think the Jets are going to actually sign Logan Stanley and not trade him. So I think what you're going to see is some guys on expiring contracts: Luke Schenn, Gus Nyquist, Tanner Pearson.
So you're under the 3.5 that Drew said as the number.
That's who I'm thinking. And
okay, I'm over. I believe Drew, you're also over, right?
You know what? The more I think about it, I wonder if there's just not a market for the guys that they have available, and that might force them under.
Fair.
That there's just not a market for nobody's interested in acquiring Gus Nyquist, and no one's interested in acquiring maybe Tanner Pearson, or no one's interested in acquiring some of these guys. So that might force them under. Interesting. I mean, I just want to make
a lot of people. Sorry, Drew. Before you get into your thought, a lot of people are throwing out the Nathan Beaulieu when he was traded for a conditional 7th. So that might be. We might see some conditional picks or some future considerations.
Ezzy, that conditional 7th was never paid out, for the record.
No.
I want to just point out one more thing before we wrap up tonight. Mike McIntyre has a column available on winnipegfreepress.com. I assume it'll be in the print edition tomorrow, and it'll probably be in the morning papers tomorrow, assuming it's not already up on the website. He talks to Luke Schenn about the upcoming.
I saw it. I haven't posted it yet.
Talks to Luke Schenn about the upcoming about the upcoming trade deadline, and Luke Schenn says that he in fact denies that he ever requested or indicated or mentioned that he would be interested in a trade earlier this year. Quote, I read online earlier this year that I'd be open to moving on from the Winnipeg Jets is what he means. That's never once come from me at all, Luke Schenn said. Obviously, when I moved my family out here to Winnipeg last summer and put my kids in school, it wasn't with the intention of moving again in 6 months. It was to be here and help this team. But there's been a lot of adversity throughout the year as a team, ups and downs as a team, and personally for sure. So equal time, Luke Schenn denying that he ever requested a trade or indicated that he would be glad to move on from his time here in Winnipeg. He acknowledges that it could very well happen between now and the 2:00 deadline on Friday, but he does deny ever requesting it earlier this season.
The worst thing that ever happened to the Jets was the Toronto Maple Leafs falling out of the. I mean, I know Jets fans are not upset about it, but the sell job that Darren Dreger was doing to convince the Leafs that there was a market for Luke Schenn to go along with Braden Schenn was that was some good stuff. But now that you just don't hear Schenn's name, I mean, again, I didn't look at the Athletics. I think it was like version 8 of their trade bait.
It was
whatever the hell it's called. But I don't know if he's still on it. He was, I think, like 15th or something like that.
He's still on it.
Is he? Okay, so there you go. So he's still on it. But that must be a fantastic board for the record, right, Ez?
Yeah. Well, I just can't wait for Friday when the only trade the Jets make is Logan Stanley for a first-round pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you know what? I mean, the truth is, if you would have said
it's actually funnier, Dave. What's funnier about that? The version 8, and we like Chris Johnston, so it's his.
We also make fun of people. That's fine. We're allowed
true.
to.
We also do that. You know who the top Winnipeg Jets player is on that trade bait board now?
Well, it's not Luke Schenn.
It's not Luke Schenn anymore.
Cole Perfetti.
No.
Brad Lambert.
Nope.
Not Tanner Pearson.
Nope.
Jonathan Taves.
Nope.
Okay.
Dylan DeMello.
Nope.
Eric Comrie.
Nope.
Forward defenseman. I'm losing. Morgan Barron.
Nope. The
Mark
top
Scheifele.
Winnipeg Jets player.
Why don't you just tell us the answer?
Because I'm enjoying you guys go through the entire roster. The top
Scheifele.
Nope.
Nyquist.
Gus Nyquist, number 22.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Hold on, Gus Nyquist is number 22 on Chris Johnston's trade bait board.
Yes, he is.
Like,
wow.
Wow. Here comes a 2029 fifth rounder.
Let me tell you, if that's the case, I like, may God have mercy on the
players
souls
are
of...
listed by how closely they demand watching based on their potential impact and the current amount of buzz around them.
Tell me you don't watch Winnipeg Jets hockey without telling me you don't watch Winnipeg Jets hockey based on that. This is why I always laugh when guys tell me I watch everything. I'm like, you don't watch everything.
Did NyQuil get out there at all for overtime tonight?
No, he didn't. But who did start overtime is Morgan Barron started overtime for the Jets tonight.
Well, obviously Scott Arniel's been reading our tweets and watching our show, for God's sakes. Yeah. But I don't know. Like it's just funny. Like these
even though he's more associated with being a playmaker than a goal scorer, it's hard to ignore the fact that Nyquist still hasn't scored a goal this season.
You think?
He signed in Winnipeg last summer, and it hasn't worked out well for either side.
So
Nyquist was traded for a second-round pick at last year's deadline, going from Nashville to Minnesota, but the price won't be nearly so steep this time around. He remains a strong skater with offensive flair and may be worth taking a flyer on.
Again, tell me you don't watch Winnipeg Jets hockey without watching Winnipeg Jets hockey. I mean, Andrew Mangiapane went for nothing. If you wanted him for free, he went down to the cleared waivers. Was that today or yesterday? Today, I think. And so he cleared waivers. He has 7 goals. He's making $3.6 million, and he went to Bakersfield for 0, as he right.
But he's under contract next year.
I know he's got it's a 2-year deal for 7.2. 3.6 each year.
Mangiapane cleared waivers today?
Yeah,
yes, he did. Yeah. By the way,
I'm surprised that nobody picked him up for nothing.
Well, because as Drew said, you do have to have him for an extra year. So
it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I would sign him. I would.
I didn't see that. I'm surprised by him. I'm surprised that a bunch of teams that are in the playoff rate, like you get him for nothing, Dave. And
Yeah,
I get it. I get.
I agree with you.
It's not like he's making $9 million a year. Like 3.6, that's like league average.
If you're the Jets,
I was actually surprised. I may or may not have had a post ready to go saying the Winnipeg Jets make a claim of.
I understand why they didn't claim him, though. I'll tell you why they didn't claim him, because that would reset where they are in the waiver priority. But now that he's cleared waivers, you could call Edmonton. You could offer them nothing for him just to get his contract off the books.
It's a 1-for-1 Nyquist for Mangiapane.
Well, he does. Nyquist does have offensive flair that you could offer the Edmonton Oilers.
In any event, we will find out more come Friday, and we still have a game on Thursday to talk about. We'll find out who's in the lineup on Thursday. We'll see if there's anybody being held out for roster management reasons.
Arniel was asked about that today, Drew, in terms of this morning, I should say, about whether they'll make any recalls, because they do have only the one extra forward. But remember, they can only make 4 recalls after the trade deadline. So that is something obviously that they have to be cognizant of, but we'll see how it goes.
I know there's no Moose minute to do anything on, because the Moose were off today. Would you guys like an update on things that Patrick Allvin has announced? That you guys interested in?
I do. I'm not going to say that people aren't enjoying your new shtick. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there should be like a new segment. Like we should have a bumper made up for this.
Things that Patrick Allvin said.
Yes, it really should. There were 2 Patrick Allvin related announcements today, both of which you can just follow me on Twitter. I'm just going to keep retweeting them because they give me such pleasure. I can't even begin to tell you. General Manager Patrick Allvin announced today that goaltender Thatcher Demko has been placed on LTIR, and defenseman P.O. Joseph has been placed on IR, retroactive to March 2nd. That was the first of the 2 announcements by Patrick Allvin. The second one was that General Manager Patrick Allvin announced today that defenseman Victor Mancini has been recalled from Abbotsford of the AHL. So there is your... I'll tell you what.
Victor.
If somebody can bring a sign to the Jets-Canucks game on Saturday that just says... General Manager Patrick Allvin announces,
good idea.
I will make a donation to charity. If you get that sign on a screen where we can see it at the Jets game on Saturday night against the Canucks.
What happens if I get Colby to take a photo of it?
You that works. If you find the person in the crowd,
okay.
If somebody in the crowd, and then of course they have to say, watch the Illegal Curve post game show on the sign or something.
Even smarter
along those lines.
I like that. Yeah. Give us a little plug there.
Exactly. If you get that sign into the arena, you put it up.
Maybe I'll talk to Dan Robertson as he will see if we can get it on TSN.
Well, no, but this is the Saturday game. It's a Sportsnet game. Yeah.
Well, then why am I talking to Dan Robertson? What the hell? What good is he?
Maybe it'll be Harner Ryan. Maybe we can talk to Harner Ryan and see if he'll mention it or something.
Sure.
But if you get a General Manager Patrick Allvin announced today sign on the screen, I'm going to make a donation to a charity. So that's your job for anybody going to Saturday's game between the Jets and the Canucks.
I'm going to the game. Should I bring that sign into the press box?
No, that would be awkward.
That might be a little awkward when I see Patrick Allvin and I'm like, hey, here's a sign that says what you're saying.
What did you announce? This is my new favorite shtick by far. Look, there's 22 games left in the season. I have to get the joy wherever I can get it. And this, for whatever reason, brings me a great deal of joy. So I'm going to keep leaning into it at this point in time.
Patrick Allvin says the Canucks are going to be terrible for the next 7 or 8 years.
Well, by the way, speaking of the Canucks, sorry, Drew, I know that this isn't Canucks lunch, but since you're turning our show into a Canucks show, I mean, I may as well mention this. Did you see that the Hockey News got they got confused, or they got lured into tweeting that Pettersson was traded to Detroit, and they put out a whole thing, and it turned out it was a fake account?
I did not. I missed that entirely.
So there's a big thing came out, and they're like, they traded. They got Pettersson. I think they got maybe there was one other acquisition, and then people were like, "What are you talking?" It was Nate Danielson, one of the big top Red Wings prospects, and like it was just hilarious. I was like, "Oh, come on!" In today's day and age,
who's the big piece though? In the fake trade?
Yeah, in the fake. Let's see. Maybe someone in the chat knows. I'll pull it up while Drew's thanking our sponsors.
Like Nate Danielson, like you said, was a first round pick a couple years ago, and he's played a few games. He's as you know, Dave. He's been tearing it up for Grand Rapids, the first place Grand Rapids Griffins. But
yeah,
you're gonna have to give up more than that. I just think it's like we said on Saturday. Like to get serious here for a second, I think Pettersson's contract is just too much for most teams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you see his press conference earlier this week?
I missed it. I heard apparently he said something like,
Well, it's just he's.
Why
just
did he have a
guy-
press conference?
Not a press conference, but like a post-practice scrum
Oh,
after I think he didn't play in overtime in one of the Canucks' most recent games earlier. Maybe it was late last week. I don't know exactly the details, but it's a guy who desperately, you can read it on his face, desperately wants to get the hell out of Vancouver because that's just such a poisonous franchise and poisonous situation all around.
It's funny you mentioned that though, because Dave made this point on Saturday. Vancouver is not only is Vancouver, I haven't been to Vancouver in a long time, like 15 years or something, but
yeah,
it doesn't
the
matter.
restraining order the city has against you should be expiring any day now.
Yes, that's a good point. I've filed a petition to David Eby, Premier of British Columbia, but so far nobody's responded. But Vancouver's one of the nicest cities in the world. Forget about Canada. It's known as one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So, like, I'm sorry, Pettersson's making $11.5 million a year in one of the nicest cities in the world. Like, suck it up a little bit. Like, get it together, man. And you know what would have been funny if he started off his scrum saying, Patrick Alvin says,
General Manager Patrick Alvin announced that I need to suck it up, man. That's it for us.
So the fake trade the fake trade was
yes.
Danielson and a 2026 first for Pettersson. So
yeah, like they wouldn't have done that. That's
no, of course not.
Just think about that for a second. Like you're giving up your franchise center.
Hockey News
your
is not what it
franchise
was.
center. Yeah.
That's it for us. Thanks to all of you for joining us for this fun edition of the Illegal Curve
We
post
went
game
extended
show.
here, Drew.
Yeah, it's
This is
already
OT.
an hour and 11 minutes, and here I thought we weren't going to have anything to talk about. Good thing that we can always ramble incoherently. Big thanks to our sponsors. They make this show possible. They make the Saturday show possible. They make the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Our friends at the Rosenmax Rady JCC, the Sports Den are upcoming with Joe Carter and Cito Gaston, Thursday, June 4th, radyjcc.com. Boston Pizza will be there April 14th, an end-of-season watch party. Come join us to watch the Jets play their final road game of the year. We'll be at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. We want you to be there
Regular
as well.
season, Drew.
Yes, regular season. Yes, the true. I haven't factored in the playoff schedule just yet.
Thank you.
Wheatland Hockey, City Place, Holt Dental, and of course our title sponsor, our friends at Play Now. Support all these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Jets win 3-2 in overtime. Plenty more post-game coverage to come on illegalcurve.com. If you haven't already done so, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications on to be sure to join us on Thursday night after the Jets and the Lightning when we do this all over again. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Until Thursday night, right around 9:30, 9:45, give or take a couple minutes. We wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.